What's up guys, it's Subsy here, and this is a comparison between the OnePlus Nord and the Google Pixel 2 XL. Now, the reason I'm doing this comparison between these two phones is this phone came out about 3 years ago now, and most people's upgrade cycles are between 2 and 3 years. So when this came out, it was sort of the lower range of the flagship market, and now this has come out at the sort of upper end of the budget market, and it sort of seems like you could try to upgrade from this to this. But would you want to? What would be sort of the compromises here? What would be the benefits? Is it worth the upgrade, or is it worth holding out for a newer version of the Pixel, say the Pixel 5? But yeah, let's get straight into it. So let's look at the hardware first. Now, if we take a look at the physical dimensions, you can see they're roughly the exact same height, but the Pixel 2 is a bit wider. However, the OnePlus Nord is definitely thicker and it has a bigger camera bump. So in the hand, they feel pretty similar. The Pixel does feel a bit more boxy, and the OnePlus Nord does, it's more curved, so it fits in your hands a bit better. And you can see the positions of the power button and the volume rockers are different on each one. So the Pixel has them both on the right, whereas the OnePlus Nord has the volume buttons on the left and the power on the right. And you can see alongside the power button, it has the alert slider, which all OnePlus phones have, and some people love it, some people never use it. I didn't really use it much, but it is a nice to have. So the Pixel 2 XL does support IP68 water and dust rating, whereas the OnePlus Nord is not rated for anything. And with these, you don't really change from Bluetooth or Wi-Fi versions. I mean, Bluetooth goes from 5.0 to 5.1 on the Nord. That's not a huge upgrade, but you do go down in USB transfer speeds. So on the Pixel 2 XL, it's USB 3.1, and on the OnePlus Nord, it's USB 2.0. So the transfer speeds will be a lot slower on the OnePlus Nord if you do need to transfer files. And of course, they both support some sort of fast charging. So the Pixel 2 is about 10 watts of fast charging, and the OnePlus Nord is up to 30 watts of fast wide charging. Neither of them support wireless charging, so just bear that in mind if you did want to upgrade to a wireless charging phone. This one does not support that either. And then we can see the camera layout. So the OnePlus Nord at the front has two cameras, so it has the normal and the ultra wide, whereas the Pixel only has a normal camera. On the back, the Pixel again has a single lens, whereas the OnePlus Nord has 4 lenses or 4 sensors. So it has a main 48 megapixel camera, then it has an ultra wide, and it has a 2 megapixel macro camera, then it has a 5 megapixel depth sensor at the back, which should help in portrait mode, just to give you more of a shadow depth of field. Now the screens here are quite different. On the Pixel 2 XL it's around 6 inches, and on the OnePlus Nord it's 6.44 inches. And the screen resolution goes down from 1440p to 1080p, but you do get a higher refresh rate on the OnePlus Nord of 90Hz versus 60Hz on the Google Pixel 2 XL. And 1080p is still okay, you pretty much can't tell the difference. Unless you have it side by side, then you can, but it's still not bad to have a 1080p display, especially when you consider the savings in battery life that you would get and everything else that comes along with a 1080p display. But both of them have Gorilla Glass 5 on them, so there's no changes there, and the OnePlus Nord does support HDR10. But then you also have to consider that this doesn't have anything interrupting the display, whereas the OnePlus Nord has a hole punch for the cameras. So it's a cutout for 2 cameras at the front, which means it's bigger. And along with that, we must talk about the speakers. Now, the OnePlus Nord only has a bottom firing speaker, whereas the Pixel 2 XL has 2 front-facing speakers. So if you watch a lot of videos, you may prefer the uninterrupted display and the 2 front-firing speakers of the Pixel 2 XL, and going from that to the OnePlus Nord, you may find it a bit annoying, or you may just pinch out your video so you don't get the cutout for the hole punch. But then you still might block the speaker grill. Now here's a quick audio sample between the two phones. As you can see, the OnePlus Nord does get louder, but it's really easy to block the speaker, whereas the Pixel 2 XL has more clarity, and especially in the low ends you can hear a lot more detail, but it doesn't get as loud as the OnePlus Nord, so it just depends on what you're going to be watching. If you're going to be listening to music, then I say the Pixel 2 XL still has the better speakers, but then if you're going to be watching YouTube videos or listening to audio, or just people's voices like TV shows and stuff, then this is fine and it gets louder, but just make sure you don't block the speaker, because it just sounds like you just deafen the entire audio, and it's just really disappointing that they never had a better audio system, or at least an amplified earpiece speaker. That would have been good. But now let's just quickly jump into performance. Now the Pixel 2 XL has never been bad for me, and even to this day it's still not a slow phone for my usage. I'm not a heavy gamer or anything like that. This has still held up for me really well, and if you found to this day that your Pixel 2 XL has held up well, this will not be a slouch. I mean, it's a mid-range processor, but it's a mid-range new processor, and it has more RAM. But here are some of the benchmarks. So you can see in Geekbench, the OnePlus Nord does actually score higher, but in the 3D Mark test, you can see that the OnePlus Nord scores lower than the Pixel 2 XL, and that's because the GPU that this processor uses is actually weaker than the Pixel 2 XL's Snapdragon 835, I think it is. So that's really held up over the years, and it's still good to this day, but the CPU is weaker than the OnePlus Nord. So if you did enjoy gaming and you wanted an upgrade for that, this probably will not be a good phone for you to go to. But then if you don't game and you just do normal day-to-day tasks, with the upgraded CPU and the more RAM that you get in this, it's probably going to be a decent upgrade for you. So now let's talk about the cameras. Now I'm not going to do this in too much detail because I made a video about the cameras on the OnePlus Nord, and I'll link that in the description if you want to watch that. But this will just be a quick overview of the cameras between the Google Pixel 2 XL and the OnePlus Nord. Now, if we look at the backs, we can see that there's a massive difference in cameras. You go from a single lens to what looks like 4 lenses. Now the Google Pixel 2 XL has a main 12 megapixel sensor, and that's the only one at the back, whereas the OnePlus Nord has a main 48 megapixel sensor. And then it has 3 other sensors alongside it. So it has the ultra wide, a depth sensor, and a macro camera. And then on the front you have a single sensor for the selfie camera on the Google Pixel, and 2 on the OnePlus Nord, so that's 1 main and 1 ultra wide again, and that will just help you get more people in the frame if you're taking a group selfie. So they can both record 4K 30 FPS from the rear cameras, and the image quality for that is a bit better on the OnePlus Nord just because of the improvements over the years. For photos, again, the Pixel is way better. The actual front-facing camera quality, for some reason you can do 4K 60 on the OnePlus Nord front, but not at the back, or at least I can't yet. There's just no option in the menus for 4K 60 on the rear, but there is an option for 4K 60 on the front, which I find kind of weird because it can definitely do that with the sensor and the processing. I'm just not sure, maybe it's a CPU limitation because the sensor is larger at the back and there's more computation to be done, so maybe that's the case. But again, if you do want an ultra-wide camera, it is a big upgrade to go from no ultra-wide to an ultra-wide at the front and the back. The macro, just forget about that, that's pointless. And the depth sensor won't do much coming from a Pixel because the Pixel does a lot of AI image processing, which helps a lot more than this depth sensor does. And again, if you want more detail, just watch my earlier video, which goes into a bit more depth about the OnePlus Nord's camera. But as most people know, the Pixel's image processing just wins hands down. That's sort of where they shine, and the pictures that come out of this are still, well, in my opinion, better than the ones that come out of the main camera on this. Just bear that in mind. This can get better with software updates, but it might not. But it's still not a bad camera system per se, especially for the price. But then you've got to consider that the Pixel 4a exists as well, which uses a similar camera system to this, but it's upgraded, and the Pixel 5 is on the horizon, but that's going to be a bit more money. There's a lot of factors to bear in mind with the camera system. So again, I'm not going to go into more detail about the cameras because that would just be a huge video then. Just know that if you want an ultra-wide camera on the front or the back, then it's a good upgrade, but if you just use the main cameras, you may not see an upgrade at all apart from doing video. Just bear that in mind. And then we come to the sort of cool Pixel stuff that you can do with Pixel phones, and that includes the always on display alongside the always listening feature, where it can recognize music offline without using any data and it shows up on your always on display. That's pretty cool, which I do miss going to the OnePlus Nord. Then you have the squeeze to launch the Google Assistant, and I didn't realize how much I used it until I had a phone which never had it. And then there's just everything with the Pixel launcher, just the way it works, how clean it looks, and just everything about it which I've got used to. And again, that's personal preference, because on the other hand you have Oxygen OS. Now a lot of people like this because it's close to stock Android, but it has a lot of customization, so you can change the accent color, you can change the font, you can change the shape of the icons. There's a lot more customization that you can do. But then this brings up another issue for me, because OnePlus have given images about what the future of Oxygen OS may be, and I really do not like that, because it looks a lot like my UI or Samsung's One UI, just where it's heavily customized to the point where it's not stock Android anymore, and that means a lot of things. Firstly, that means that there's a lot more added on to the Android experience, which means that the performance will decrease. No matter how optimized it is, it's not going to be as good as a lightweight skin, which is what this is at the moment. So if this gets heavier, it's going to decrease in performance, and that also means that the upgrade time for software updates is going to increase, because what happens now is Google releases the Android software, and then OnePlus has to add on their own stuff and make sure it's compatible and do all the testing, and the more they have to test, the longer that period is going to be. So this is one of the reasons that Samsung phones take a long time to get updates, because the Samsung software has to be changed and optimized and updated, all to work with the new version of Android before it gets released, and it's going to be a similar future for OnePlus if they go down that route. So although you do have a promise of, I think, 3 years of software updates for this, they may not be clean stock Android software updates. They may be heavily customized to the new Oxygen OS 11, I think it's going to be called. Just bear that in mind if you did want a clean Android experience. This may not be that going forward. Now, one thing I'm not going to compare is the battery life, and the reason I'm not going to compare that between the two phones is because I've used this phone for 3 years, so the battery is naturally going to be degraded. So there's no point in me saying that this is better than this or this one's better than this, because it's not a fair comparison anymore. I will say that it has lasted me a full day, and it feels similar to how I started with the Pixel 2 XL, so that's good. It's not bad in battery life. I just can't do a direct comparison or a fair comparison with that. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is chord quality. Now, I'm not going to talk about speaker quality because that plays into the fact that the speakers aren't as good as the Pixel 2 XL. I'm going to talk about the handset quality itself. Now, regarding background noise when you're on a phone call, I didn't realize how well the Pixel does this until I used this. So I had a TV show playing in the background and I answered a phone call, and the person thought that I had a person right next to the phone talking to me, because for some reason it didn't block that out. Now, that's never been an issue with my Pixel 2 XL. I've normally not paused the TV show to answer a phone call. I'm not sure how many people actually use the phone as a phone these days, but if you do, and that's a big thing for you, then this may not be the best thing to go for. But having said that, the actual clarity in the voice, I was told, is a lot better from this, and to the other person it just felt like I was on a better connection. So that's a good point to the OnePlus Nord, and I only had my SIM card in here for a few days, so I didn't want to use it for too long because I just didn't enjoy the experience. And that brings me to my conclusion for this video, where if you want to upgrade your Pixel 2 XL and you enjoy the features of the OnePlus Nord, you enjoy the Oxygen OS updates, the customization it gives and everything around that, and you enjoy the camera system, and you're not heavily invested in the Pixel stuff, so you don't really care about the Pixel exclusive stuff, and you're not too fussed about the stock Android experience, and all you want is a promise of software updates, then it's a good phone to go for, because there's not many compromises going from the Pixel 2 XL to this. But on the other hand, if you've gone 3 years without upgrading and you want a phone to last you 3 years that can survive that, this may not be the phone to go for. Because if you're the person who bought this at this price point when it was new, you may be wanting something similar to that price point, because the Pixel 5 is about to come out, and that's rumored to cost around this or less for when this came out. Which is more than the OnePlus Nord, granted, but it's going to have a better camera system, that's no doubt, and it's going to have improvements on this. So if you're used to the Pixel, it's just going to be the Pixel with improvements. It's not going to be a different system, and you can guarantee that the updates for Android are going to be at least 3 years, and they're going to be stock Android, and you're going to get it first before anyone else, before OnePlus, before Samsung, before any other brand, because it's going to be pure stock Android, the Pixel experience. So I guess the choice is all down to you guys. If you want to upgrade your phone, whether it's a Pixel, whether it's like a Samsung Galaxy S8, S9 or whatever, to the OnePlus Nord, it's a good phone for the price, but it's not a great phone for the price, especially considering that you have the Google Pixel 4a, which again, it's cheaper and it has a better camera. And if you like small phones, you'll like the size of this, especially if you're coming from a normal Pixel 2 size, not the XL. You would love the Pixel 4a, and that's probably going to be your go-to phone. But if you do want a bigger phone, because the size of this is quite small for some people now, the Pixel 5 is going to be bigger. I guess it all comes down to personal preference then. What do you want to look for in a future phone? Do you want 5G because this has it? Do you want a budget phone, which is really good. Oh, do you want fast charging? Do you want wireless charging? Do you want waterproof? What do you want in a phone? It all depends on what you guys prefer to see and what you guys are actually going to make use of, because if you're not going to play games, this could be fine, but if you want to play games, then the processor in this is quite lacking for that. Although it does have a 90Hz display, you can't make use of that with the GPU in this. It just comes down to personal preference then. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. How long do you guys normally wait to upgrade your phones in? And do you prefer smaller phones or bigger phones? Or are you going to upgrade to a different phone? Is there like another budget phone which you preferred the look of to the OnePlus Nord or the Pixel 4a? Or are you guys holding out for a specific phone as well? Because I think I'm going to return the OnePlus Nord and probably return the Pixel 4a, keep using the Pixel 2 XL until the Pixel 5 comes out, and then sort of do a comparison there, because that would be the 3-year upgrade to the Pixel 2 XL directly. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, and as always, it's been Subsy here, and I'll see you guys next time.